Welcome back to Roundtable Talks. I'm David Saperis, and today we're sitting here with Ashley Lowe. Thank you for joining us, Ashley.
Thanks for having me.
Ashley, you are 10 plus years in the business, and I just wanted to ask you, a lot of agents that are new in the business, and I guess this would be advice to new agents, they have a fear of actually just jumping in and doing the job. They have a fear of either calling, door knocking, all of that stuff. They feel that they're not prepared enough, and they want to continue to read articles, educate themselves before they actually go out and work with agents. Did you have that problem when you first started? And if you did, how did you overcome that?
I mean, I think everyone has that fear when you first start, but I think the key is to just do it, because at the end of the day, you know, that first call, it might not have gone smoothly, but the next one and the one after, you improve it from your experience, and then you see what kind of questions people ask, and then you learn how to respond accordingly. And you're like, okay, you know what, next time I'll say this instead, or oh, I'll try this next time. And then over time, it actually just gets a lot better, and you get a lot more confident in what you do. And I think, you know, for someone new in the business, you can try cold calling, you can try door knocking, and by you trying to do those kind of things, I think eventually you'll realize what is most suited for you. So maybe you are more suited to do cold calling instead of door knocking or whatnot. Like, it really helps you find what you're good at, I think.
And I believe that. Like, I think, and that's a good point. I think when you actually put your first step forward and actually do it, at that point you can determine whether you like it or not, or what is more successful, whether it's a door knocking, cold calling. And also, I think what you said is very important, and I think that's a big takeaway, is that unless you start doing it, you're not going to gain the experience that you're looking for. I don't think a book or an article online or an Instagram post on how to do things is the same as actually doing it. So
yeah, it's so true, because, you know, sometimes it's great. You know, it's the same thing with school. You know, you learn about it, you read about it, but then, you know, when you're on the job, when you first start the job, it's so different than
for sure
when you actually what you actually learn. So yeah, it is about just getting started, and that's probably the most difficult thing to do, but just pushing yourself and just having grit to continue.
So don't think too much, just go.
Yeah, don't think.
Just go.
Just go.
Again, you've been in the business for a while. You have experienced up markets and down markets. What have you seen as your biggest hurdle when you're going into a down market, and how do you overcome that hurdle?
I think, you know, your clients obviously can get a little bit nervous if you're on the sell side in a down market, and so it's just about reassuring them and making sure you put your best foot forward, and just being confident in what you're doing so that you can make them feel better. Because sometimes, like, they understand that it's a down market and they understand everything, but emotionally, you know, you're, as a realtor, you're basically their therapist also.
Right.
And so I think it's just managing your clients' expectations, and then also just working with other realtors. Like, I know some of the newer realtors are only used to an up market where it's always bidding wars and whatnot. And so, you know, just in a situation where it is like more of a balanced market, you do really want to cooperate with your cooperating agent, instead of just being sort of
combative.
Yeah, combative. That's usually, I feel like, not as successful, and I find that, you know, most of the deals that you get done that are good deals end up being the ones where you really work together.
And you mentioned the word confidence, and I think that is key. I think if you're confident when you are, let's just talk about the listing, when you're confident in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to get that listing sold, and you're communicating that with the seller, I think that helps in I guess, managing their expectations. I think sometimes in a market where it takes longer to sell than what the previous days on the market showed, a lot of times the sellers can get very antsy and upset. And I think how you approach it with your confidence could mitigate any of that anxiety that they're experiencing.
And also just giving them like some like a bigger picture. Like, because if you think it's going to be in the market longer, then just manage that expectation and let them know. And then I think also updating them along the way too. So if you're saying, oh, it's going to take like a month to sell, for example, and then on a weekly basis or a daily basis, telling them what's been happening, because they are probably more antsy about it.
For sure.
And then also from like I would say being confident, but maybe not arrogant too, because I can sometimes, like if people are overly arrogant from talking to other realtors, like you might scare them away too. And so I think that's kind of important, because I find that sometimes people who are overly confident about, say, their pricing or whatnot in this market, then they end up not going for, putting an offer on something.
Right. Social media. I think when you started and back then, social media probably wasn't as relevant as it is today. How are you handling, or I shouldn't say handle, but what are you doing on the social media aspect of things, and how are you finding whether it's a big success, a little success, or no success?
I mean, I definitely think social media is important, and an online presence is important. So I have a website, I have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of that. Personally, I don't use it as a lead generation source. I use it more so that if somebody is looking me up and trying to get to know who I am, they have an idea and can understand the type of person I am, and then they might want to reach out and talk to me, because typically for my lead generation, my sphere of influence is my main source of business. And so it's more for example, if I have a past client in there, wanting to refer me, they'll send my Instagram to their friend or whatnot.
Right.
And that's more of how I use social media, more than some other people who may spend a lot of money putting into social media as a lead generation source.
But your sphere of influence is the one that you're saying that is your key to success. And talk about that. Like, how do you manage that sphere? How do you grow the sphere? How do you communicate to that sphere?
I work with mainly my sphere of influence, and it's obviously grown throughout the years. And so it first kind of just started off with friends and family, and from then it's now, clients, and then their clients' friends and their clients, whatnot, or even, mortgage brokers or lawyers, referrals as well. And then obviously past clients too.
For sure.
And so, and that's the way that I use social media, is that sometimes maybe if I'm not posting, or and I don't post very often, but it's just my way of staying top of mind instead of using it to get new leads. Like, it's just like, hey, I still exist. It is more the way that I use it. And similarly with the other things that I do, for example, holiday cards, that kind of stuff, or even just catching up with them for a lunch or whatnot. That's the way that I sort of stay in touch. And then from there, oftentimes, like, they'll be like, oh, I actually have a friend that's looking, or my sister or my brother or whatnot. And then that's usually how I try to grow my business.
Doing the accounting and looking at the cost per lead, I would think sphere of influence is probably the lowest cost per lead, and it gives you the greatest results.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, like, really, it's more time that you're spending on it, I think.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's time that
you enjoy.
That I enjoy, if it's about going to a meal, or because I work out and I like to do workout classes, like oftentimes I'm just catching up with my clients. I'm like, hey, let's go for a workout class and grab coffee after. It's a lot more casual, I think.
But you're also building a relationship.
I'm building a relationship, and at the end of the day, like, I think it's given me some success, so.
And I think relationship selling is much better for long-term growth and sustainability in this business than being transactional, which is, I think, more on when you're doing like online leads, it becomes more of what it shouldn't. You should try to become more relationship building after the fact, but I find with that sort of lead source, if you get really busy, you just become a transaction agent, and then you kind of forget about the relationships down the road.
Like, the way I see it is that I'm spending a lot of time up front nurturing that relationship, but then I'm not really spending any other time like trying to get those leads in any other way. And so, and then at the end, the course of a lifetime, it could be like 5, 10 plus transactions, and that's because I'm nurturing a relationship throughout.
Yeah.
Versus, in another situation where it's more transactional, you're spending so much time and energy on each one that I feel like at the end it ends up adding to more time and money.
For sure. What is the future as far as business for Ashley Lowe?
So I've been actually, that I've been debating different types of avenues that I should go, and I've been exploring if I should grow a team or if I should, maybe get an assistant or whatnot. So I think, the avenue that I'm going to go is I'm going to double down on my sphere of influence, and I'm really going to have a system to maintain that sphere of influence and keep in touch and whatnot, and then maybe hire an assistant in the future. So.
Well, the system is the key. I'm glad you mentioned that, and doubling down on what has worked for you for the last 10 plus years.
Yeah.
At least you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just improving on what has been your success.
Yeah.
Which is good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashley, for joining us today. Remember to hit like on this episode and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, have a good one.
Bye.